Hello everyone, today we're going to be taking a look at Transformers: The Last Knight. Released in 2017, this film is currently the last Transformers movie directed by Michael Bay. I'm taking a look at this one just because this is its 5th anniversary, and I figured I'd go ahead and knock it out just because, not really a fan of this one. So, after Transformers: Age of Extinction was released in 2014, we didn't really hear anything about a 5th movie for a good while. Michael Bay was eventually announced to be returning as director, and there was a writer's room assembled to help plan out future Transformers movies and a full-on Transformers cinematic universe. We first saw stuff for this movie in May of 2016 with a title announcement, some casting news, some art, like we saw Optimus Prime with a red mark on his face, and then we eventually saw Megatron, which also revealed that Megatron was coming back, which surprised quite a lot of people, me included, since Galvatron was a thing in Age of Extinction. If you'd like to possibly look more into that situation, please check out my What Happened to Galvatron video recently uploaded. Then throughout the summer of 2016, we got various character announcements, whether it was showing off vehicles, concept art, and all of this revealed either returning characters like say Drift, Crosshairs, Hound, obviously Optimus Prime and Bumblebee, or new characters like Onslaught and Hot Rod. Then in December of 2016, we got the first trailer, which I liked that trailer a good bit. It showed off some cool looking stuff and it had a decent little twist for people watching with, oh my god, Optimus Prime's evil, ah! Then we waited a little while, then we got the next trailer with the Super Bowl, revealed some cool stuff, including the Ark on the moon. Stuff like that got me hype. I was like, hey, you're tying it in with the other movies a bit more. And then we got the big main trailer in, I believe, April 2017, and I love that trailer. That's a really good one. It got me pretty pumped for the movie. Then there was one that I really liked a lot where I believe it was just called an extended TV spot or something like that, and it had no dialogue until the very end with Anthony Hopkins, and it was just scenes from the movie with the track from the score, The Coming of Cybertron, put over it, and I really liked that one. It really got me hyped for the movie. Then the movie came out towards the end of June 2017. I went and saw it with a friend of mine in IMAX 3D, although it turns out that theater I went to, which is the closest IMAX theater, isn't a full-sized IMAX, and I remember walking out disappointed. I'm pretty sure he liked it more than I did at the time. I definitely had things I liked about the movie, but this was the first time I had been real disappointed walking out of a film in a while. I honestly don't think I felt disappointment like that since I saw Spider-Man 3 in theaters in 2007, so about 10 years. I saw that at one of the early screenings. I believe that was like a Tuesday or Wednesday night. Then the following weekend, I saw it with a group of friends, and I remember kind of liking it more, but it was one of those deals where it felt like I was more so telling myself to like it more. And since then, I've had a very love-hate relationship with this movie. There are times where I think it's a bit overhated, then there are times where I'm like, nah, this movie fucking sucks. It's where though, kind of like with the rest of the Michael Bay Transformer movies, I do think it is overhated, but this one is easily the weakest of the 5 and just really fails in a lot of ways. So I'll try and get into the story as best I can. There's a lot of just stuff that happens in this movie, so bear with me. The movie starts off in 484 AD with King Arthur and his knights fighting off the Saxons. Things are not going well. They're overwhelmed, they're losing the battle, and they're waiting for Merlin since he's supposed to help somehow. Merlin goes to a crashed ship in a mountainside that has the Guardian Knights with the lead red one, who I believe it's supposed to be a character called Storm Rain, giving him a staff, which is supposed to hold great power, and it bonds itself to Merlin's DNA, and he is informed to protect the staff because one day a great evil will come for it. The knights combine into Dragonstorm, a very large 3-headed dragon, and they turn the tide and win the battle. Fast forward years later, and Optimus Prime is floating through space after the end of Transformers: Age of Extinction. Landing on Cybertron, he finds the planet in ruins with just huge chunks barely hanging on, and he meets Quintessa, the supposed creator of all Transformers. There, she slaps Optimus Prime and gives him this red mark, and basically begins to brainwash him until eventually she has a complete hold on him and his eyes turn purple, and he is now referred to as Nemesis Prime, and he is sent to Earth to find this staff. On Earth, Cade Yeager, once again played by Mark Wahlberg, has a hideout at a junkyard, along with the remaining Autobots from Age of Extinction and some of the Dinobots, and some random other ones here and there. While in Chicago investigating a crash site, Cade meets Isabella and Squeaks, who both are just hiding out in the rubble, and he goes to investigate the crashed ship, which has a knight in it who gives him a medallion. With the medallion following him, Cade briefly sees Barricade, and he is trapped by the TRF, the Transformers Reaction Force, although Bumblebee saves him. During all this, we see that Lennox from the first 3 films is a part of the group, but eventually the TRF makes a deal with Megatron and releases some Decepticons that the TRF captured, including Mohawk, Nitro Zeus, Dreadbot, and Onslaught. The Decepticons and TRF go to capture Cade, but they're fought away, with most of the Decepticons dying almost instantly, except for Megatron, Barricade, and Nitro Zeus. There, Cade meets Cogman, who works for Sir Edmund Burton in England. He is needed because the medallion chose him, so Cade and Bumblebee go to England. Also summoned, or should I say kidnapped, by Edmund Burton is Vivian Wembley. She's an Oxford professor who has been watched over by Hot Rod, who is the one specifically that kidnaps her. They all meet at Edmund Burton's castle, where it turns out he is a member of the Order of Witwickens, which involves major people throughout history protecting the secret history of Transformers on Earth. Down in the castle, there's the original round table from King Arthur, where Burton reveals that Cade Yeager is now the last knight. TRF comes to capture them, but eventually they find a Transformer that's a submarine, and they go deep down into the ocean somewhere, I don't know. And there they find Merlin's tomb along with the Guardian Knights. The ship begins to rise out of the ocean, and in comes Nemesis Prime. He takes the staff after it's discovered by Vivian, and him and Bumblebee have a fight. Nemesis Prime is about to kill Bumblebee when, out of freaking nowhere, Bumblebee can speak again. And this is enough to snap Optimus out of it, and his eyes go back to being blue and the red mark disappears. This movie. Megatron and Nitro Zeus show up, take the staff, the Guardian Knights come out, and they're gonna kill Optimus, and in possibly the dumbest scene of this whole movie, which is kind of saying something, the talisman that Mark Wahlberg's had this whole time forms Excalibur, yes, it's supposed to be the Excalibur, and blocks a sword strike from one of the knights. So then Megatron takes the staff to Stonehenge to start a portal or something. I don't really understand what's going on there. And Cybertron shows up with Quintessa, and she's all like, yeah, we're gonna drain the life from Unicron. Oh my god, I haven't even mentioned that. So yeah, it turns out Earth is Unicron. Bam, doing it Transformers Prime style. Earth is Unicron. So yeah, they want to drain the life from Unicron, which will destroy Earth in the process, but it will heal Cybertron. So yay, or something. The Autobots use Lockdown Ship to fly up into the air, and a big battle happens. A combiner called Infernicus shows up, and they can't take him down until Optimus Prime arrives, who was delayed like always, but with no real explanation to it. And then after the military blows up a bit of Cybertron, it knocks off the ignition chamber that they have to get to, and everyone's tumbling in zero gravity. The Megatron's kicked out of a wall, and then Quintessa's just kind of shot. Nitro Zeus is killed, and they save everybody, but now Cybertron is kind of permanently attached to the Earth, which is kind of nuts, with the Autobots returning to Cybertron. The end. Until a credit scene where it shows that Quintessa is actually alive and in disguise as a human, and she's all like, hey man, you want to kill Unicron? So yeah, I really hope I didn't take too long trying to explain the story of this movie, because like I said, there is a lot to it. Just so much bullshit in this movie. So let's start off with the human characters. Cade Yeager is back in this. He's fine. I like him less in this one than in Age of Extinction. Like, he's a serviceable main character, I suppose. There's Lennox, who is, along with Morshower, just kind of there. Like, they really don't do a whole lot in this movie, which is unfortunate, because I was very excited for Lennox to come back, and really sad that Epps didn't come back. But yeah, like, he's just kind of there. I mean, I am glad that he's there, but there's just not much to it. There's Vivian Wembley, who, you know, I actually like her a decent bit. You know, she's kind of stuck up at first, then it finds out, oh, all this mystical stuff is real. Wow. She doesn't have an amazing story or anything like that, but she is alright. Got Anthony Hopkins as Sir Edmund Burton. I think he's pretty good in the movie. I mean, I feel like it's kind of hard for Anthony Hopkins to be bad in something. Who knows? I've probably missed some roles of his where he's clearly just doing something for the paycheck, and let's be honest here, this is probably one of those movies, but I feel like he's good. He's very entertaining. I think pretty funny. Has some great scenes with Mark Wahlberg and Cogman. He's good. Isabella is borderline pointless in this movie. You really could have cut her out for the most part because she just doesn't do anything, which is kind of nuts since she was used a lot in the trailers and stuff, and even had her own specific trailer with her narrating her backstory and stuff. I don't know, she's there. There's this guy, Jimmy, who's kind of like Mark Wahlberg's aide on The Junkyard. I like him a good bit. He's pretty funny. You probably hear me say this a lot with this movie, but like, once again, he's a character that doesn't do much, but he makes me laugh. I like the actor. He's good in this. There's the character Santos, who's kind of the leader of TRF. If it's not Lennox, the whole relationship is weird. Santos kind of hates all Transformers, but thank God whenever there's kind of a, oh wow, I guess we were wrong moment later on in the movie, he doesn't try to pull some twisted thing of like, oh, but here's my chance to shoot somebody. Like, he just goes with it, and I kind of dig that. You know, they had like a genuine, you know what, maybe we were wrong, and that's it. So kind of a nothing character, antagonistic until like the last little bit of the movie, but I don't mind the guy. Simmons is back in this movie, surprisingly. He's kind of just an overglorified cameo. I wouldn't be surprised if John Turturro did all of his scenes in like 2 hours. Again, it's a case of it's nice to see him back. It's just he was just kind of there. Then there's all the King Arthur and Knight stuff. Oh, and Stanley Tucci is Merlin. He's funny as hell. I love it. A lot of people thought he was a bit over the top, and to a degree, I'm not really gonna disagree with that, but I really didn't mind him in this. Yeah, like King Arthur and all the knights were fine. Like, I didn't really have a problem with any of them. Also, there's a douchebag like NASA guy in this who's all like, nah man, don't believe that mystical stuff, believe in physics. Which, let's be real here, Michael Bay probably took personally. But he's annoying, didn't like him. You could honestly cut him out for the most part. It would just kind of be whatever. I was glad to see him hanging his head in his hands. Fuck that guy. Now let's get to the robots, and there's actually a lot more than you would expect in this movie, because they'll just have random ones out of freaking nowhere. So, looking at the Autobots, of course we gotta talk about Optimus Prime. He's barely in this movie. You don't actually see him transform at all, which is kind of crazy. He's just very underutilized in this. I even feel like Peter Cullen isn't at his best here, especially when he first lands on Cybertron. Just something about him kind of waking up and then talking to Quintessa I just didn't really buy. I don't know. One scene of his I do enjoy though is where he meets his supposed creator, basically a god to him, and his first instinct is to be like, I'm gonna kill you. I don't know, man. I love the violent side of movie Prime, and for some reason him basically looking at what would be his god and just being like, nah, you're about to fucking get it, just cracks me up. I love it. Bumblebee's in this. He has a new ability to like disassemble himself and reassemble. Bumblebee's fine in this. You found out he fought in World War II. That's a pretty cool scene. I like the new Camaro form. I like that he went back to the design from the first three more so. I didn't mind the upgraded slash Stinger look from Age of Extinction, but this just looks better. And I like the little upgrades to his robot mode design. I dig this look for Bumblebee. Again, he's fine in the movie. I don't really have a problem with him. I have a problem with him just getting his voice back out of freaking nowhere, but he's okay. Hound, Drift, and Crosshairs are back from Age of Extinction. I'm gonna kind of cover all of them at once because it's kind of the same thing of like, they're there. That's about it. Hound has a completely different vehicle mode, but yet still turns into the same exact robot mode, except with like Red Cross logos on him. Drift is pretty new in here since he turns into a different car and has a different color and a different face even. Crosshairs is also a slightly different Corvette than he was in Age of Extinction, but it's so minor that it doesn't really matter. We do see all of them transform on screen though in this one, which is pretty cool, except for Drift turning into his helicopter form in Age of Extinction. We didn't really see any of them transform, at least not into the car modes, I guess I'll say. They're fine. I still like them a good bit. I like their personalities. I like that they continue the joke of Drift getting angry at stuff while he's trying to be at peace and not do that kind of stuff. A new Autobot in this movie is Hot Rod. I like Hot Rod a lot, and I'm just gonna say it. This is my personal favorite version of Hot Rod. I hate G1 Hot Rod. He sucks. Now, I know that some people don't like the French accent or that they don't like the design. I personally don't really mind the design. The only thing that's a bit iffy about it is the head. Just the eyes are a bit big and he kind of has like fish lips, but otherwise it looks fine to me. The French accent though, it doesn't bug me, I'll be honest. I find it kind of funny, and even the character doesn't like it, saying that he can't get rid of it. So like, it's whatever. And you know what? At the end of the day, it's another take on a character. So whatever. He doesn't have to be exactly like previous versions. I don't know, I just found him a very likable character, even if he is basic. I'm not gonna act like he's the best character ever. Very basic, very like, yeah, I fight stuff. I also love his time gun. I really wish there were more just hard sci-fi weapons like that in these movies. I really enjoyed the whole time time bubble thing, and he uses it in some pretty cool scenes. There's Squeaks, who's kind of like the new Kid Appeal character, except he doesn't do a whole lot, and is once again just kind of there. I like Squeaks though, he's fine. It's not like he bugs me, although there is a part of me that's just kind of like, why is he here? There's the Guardian Knights, who I think they all have pretty cool designs. It can be argued that they're not too transformery, but I don't know, I dig them personally. There's not much that you can really say about them though. I like their voices, even if they are kind of just generic gravelly voices. I dig them. Skeletron was pretty cool when he wakes up with his sort of zombie face, even though he's not a zombie because it's not like he was dead and then revived. Their combined form of Dragonstorm's pretty cool, although again, just underutilized and kind of there. They don't even participate at all in the final battle except to drop Optimus Prime off. There's Day Trader, who he's okay. I don't know, I'm not really a fan of his design, and he's in one scene and I don't know, don't mind him, but he's just kind of there. I know I'm probably getting very repetitive for that stuff, but it's all true. He's just kind of there. There's also Cogman. I love Cogman in this movie. I believe he's sort of the breakout character. He's so good. He's super funny. I like his design, and he just has a good bit of character to him. I like Cogman a lot. I don't know. I really hope he's one of those characters that can kind of cross into other versions of Transformers, kind of like, say, a Knockout or something like that. Of course, it's mentioned that he's a headmaster in the movie, although we never actually see him do that, despite the fact that the toy had the headmaster gimmick and turned into the car that he was driving in the chase in the movie. And Nitro Zeus has a headmaster port, so we can only assume that he was supposed to basically rip off Nitro Zeus's head and commandeer it, basically, which I think would have been kind of cool. Plus, I like that idea for headmasters of just, hey, let me rip off this guy's head and then take it over. Kind of sucks that wasn't a thing. Grimlock and Slug are in this movie, although they really don't do anything. They're just kind of there. Grimlock has a bit more action. Slug seriously just kind of pops up out of nowhere during this middle of an action scene, and you kind of see him in the background of one bit. Otherwise, whatever. And there's also the baby Dinobots. They're cute. They're there. Whatevs. On to the Decepticons. I'll just go ahead and include Quintessa in this bit. I like Quintessa. She has basically nothing to her besides, I'm the creator and I'm untrustful. And that's about it. The Guardian Knights refer to her as the Great Deceiver, so I basically don't really believe anything she says. Me personally, I kind of believe that she's some sort of weird, just Cybertronian space witch that just took advantage of a situation. She has an awesome voice. I don't mind her design, even though it is a bit too human-like for my taste, but I don't mind it. Megatron's back in this, and you know, I like his design a lot. It's not my favorite design for movie Megatron, but he does look super cool, and honestly, I think he might be the one that pulls off the whole knight aesthetic look the best. The sword's super cool. I love the battle mask. All around, it's a pretty cool design. As for Megatron himself, I do feel like he's pretty wasted in this movie. He just doesn't really pop up a whole lot, especially in the middle of the movie. He doesn't get a cool action scene. Even his transformations are pretty sparse, although I do like the first one that you see. That one's pretty alright. There's also that random scene where he's just shooting flames out of his fusion cannon for basically no reason other than to, I guess, try and look intimidating to Barricade, and Barricade doesn't seem at all phased. His best scene is when he talks to Optimus during the final battle, which, you know, it's pretty cool that he's basically holding off all of the Autobots on his own. Well, for the most part, because Nitro Zeus is there. But he's fighting a bunch of people at once, and that should be awesome. But like, he kind of keeps getting caught off guard by people. He gets his arm cut off. It is kind of cool that he manages to pin down Optimus with one arm missing. But still, I don't know. He just could have been a lot better in this. Frank Welker's performance is pretty good too. I do like that. A good vocal performance and a pretty cool design just isn't really enough to save him for me in this. I do believe this might be Megatron at his worst in any of the movies. Then there's Barricade, who makes his return in this movie. He was supposedly killed in Dark of the Moon, but he's back here. I don't mind his new design. I definitely prefer his other design, but he doesn't look bad. I like the police car a lot. That's pretty cool. His voice is a tad different in this. It doesn't have as much processing done to it, but he still sounds fine. I don't know, he's cool. Although kind of like Megatron, it does kind of suck that he doesn't really get a moment to shine, at least in an action scene, I guess. You do get some cool transformation transformation stuff with him though, so that's neat. Overall, he's okay in this, but again, just wasted. Then there's the crew, and starting off, I go with the one that lasts the longest, which is Nitro Zeus. I love him in this. He does reuse the KSI boss's body along with Shockwave's head. There are some differences here and there, especially with colors and whatnot, so he's not completely one-to-one just that body with Shockwave's head, but basically speaking, that's what he is. But I like his personality, I like the voice, kind of wish there was more to him. I love the name, even if it is kind of dumb. I remember it caught me off guard in the theater, because we knew the toy was called Nitro, and I remember it's like it happened in slow motion as I remember hearing Nitro. I was like, oh hey, here it comes, it is Zeus. What? I don't know, that just took it to a whole new level. But I like Nitro Zeus. He's another one that I'd like to see kind of cross over into other stuff someday. The rest of the crew though, there's not much to them. They're just kind of there. Mohawk has a new design. He's one of the few that doesn't really borrow stuff in some way from previous character models. Mohawk's fine. I'm not really a fan, but I also don't dislike him. He's just kind of there. I remember being kind of excited for Onslaught, but he does nothing and then just dies in the most pathetic way. Like, if you told me that he wanted Drift to cut off his head, I would not be surprised. Dreadbot is a nothing character that dies. We see a character called Berserker for like 5 seconds, and it's so weird because he's basically a cameo, and he had toys over someone like Onslaught, who, even though he's basically a cameo too, he was actually a part of this team. I don't know, it's just kind of weird. We see him early on, and then in the end battle, there's Infernicus, who is made up of the Infernocons. They're fine. I dig their kind of demonic look to them and their design, although I feel like the whole combiner aspect is kind of just because Infernicus to me kind of just looks like the individual guys, but kind of bulked out. But he's fine. I dig the name, even though it's kind of cheesy. Took a decent bit to take him down because he did get shot at quite a few times. I don't know, he's okay. Then there's a bunch of just sort of random characters, including some that are cameos of characters from previous movies. Like, for example, showing up at Cade's junkyard was Wheelie, which, hey, he survived Dark of the Moon as well. He needs to find brains for wherever brains went after Age of Extinction. He's there. His whole bits are weird. I really feel like you can tell he was added in a tad late, because there are some scenes where it's like he's just in the scene talking, but no one's really reacting to him. Like, he really feels like added in after the fact, aside from the scene where he's poking fun at Jimmy. Then you got the character Canopy, who's in there for like a minute and dies. Kind of has a slightly sad scene, but you're not really attached to him, so it's kind of wasted. There's the supposed Transformer that's a submarine, and don't see it transform, so I mean, it definitely does stuff that indicates it's a Transformer, but part of me is like, it should have done it. Submarine Transformer would be super cool, man. You got this guy Trench, who's at Cade's junkyard, and he's basically just Scrapper with some differences here and there. There's the cool tank that Edmund Burton has. I like him a lot. I believe his name is supposed to be Bulldog, even though it's brief. I like him. And there's also a character called Lieutenant who reuses bits of Jetfire CGI model, which was pretty interesting to see again. That really caught me off guard. Oh, and there's also Topspin in Cuba. He's been called Volleybot just because he wanted to play volleyball, and it's weird because it is Topspin's body from Dark of the Moon, but with Leadfoot's head. But apparently he is meant to be Topspin, so hey, I guess one of the wreckers survived. Then there's Unicron. We obviously don't see him really since he's inside the Earth. We do see his horns though, which I think look cool, but they're just big spikes coming out of the ground. The spikes are rising from the Earth to fight Cybertron since it is approaching, and they're spread to different parts of the world just because of continental drift and Pangea, because when Pangea was a thing, Unicron's horns were in a circle, and when the continent started to split, that's why they ended up in random spots around the world. And in the middle of that was Stonehenge. But yeah, Unicron is based off of the Transformers Prime one, it seems. We never really see him in full, and it looks like we're never going to. Even though he is said to be awake at the end, since Quintessa does say that he specifically doesn't like being touched by the humans. And yeah, unless I'm really not remembering something off the top of my head, that's all of the robot cast. So, getting into the action of the movie, I do feel like this is the weakest of the 5 movies in terms of action. There's so many bits that just feel like they kind of end before they really even get going, like the battle in the town with the Autobots and the Decepticons. There's a drone chase with these TRF drones and Cade that I feel like just kind of goes on for a while. Hound and Megatron start the fight, and then it's just over. The coolest bit in the whole movie is the zero gravity scene with the ignition chamber flying through the air. I do think that's a pretty cool idea, and it's executed fairly alright. I just feel like more could have been done with it, but otherwise I do like the final battle a decent bit. Even the fight beforehand, as kind of basic as it is, it's okay. The Bumblebee versus Nemesis Prime scene is... It sucks because this really could have been a fantastic battle, but it just ends up kind of just being another fight and also kind of short. Plus it ends in a super dumb way. I really like the opening scene with the knights and whatnot. I actually think this is a pretty cool fight scene. Some of the editing is off in it, and let me tell you, we will get to the editing in this movie. But I think it's a pretty cool fight, and I wouldn't mind seeing Michael Bay direct some sort of medieval knight movie if it's kind of like this. So yeah, the action definitely a bit lackluster, which is not a good thing considering the fact that action is one of the things that these movies really have going for them, and this one doesn't really have anything that's super standout. And again, even the final battle isn't as good as it could have been. One thing I really do enjoy with this movie is I feel like this one has some really good looking shots. Like one of the ones I like a lot is just before the fight really starts in the ignition chamber, and Cade and Vivian are running towards it while this big bit of Cybertron is swinging towards them, and it's a pretty decently long take, and I just feel like the scenery is gorgeous. Oh, that's a very, I would dare say, epic shot. It looks great. Or like whenever Merlin goes to the mountain in the beginning, and kind of like I mentioned earlier with the action of the scene, I really like the opening. Is the Transformers interacting with King Arthur and Merlin and whatnot kind of dumb? Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, but I feel like it's executed a bit better than it really should be. I don't know. Like I said, it's ridiculous for sure, but I like it. I like whenever Megatron talks to Starscream's head. That's also one of my favorite scenes with him in it. Very, very brief, but I do like it a lot. I do like whenever Hound pops out and starts shooting at Megatron, and Megatron just messes him up real quick with his fusion cannon. And of course, the whole "we were brothers once" scene. That bit's awesome. I love it. I think that The Last Knight has a really good score. The only thing for me is there are a lot of tracks that I feel like they're not bad or anything, but they're very basic for me. Like, I'm not really a fan of a lot of the TRF stuff, but a lot of the sort of medieval centric music is great. Like for me, my two favorite tracks from the score are Say Glass Natunde and Purity of Heart. Those tracks are absolutely amazing. And Purity of Heart's not even really in the movie. Other good ones are Your Voice and of course We Have to Go. Great stuff. I really like the score of this film. The score has some of my favorite tracks that Steve Jablonsky has ever done, and honestly are some of my favorite music tracks, period. Even though this movie fails in a lot of continuity, which we'll also get to, I do think this film has some pretty cool references here and there. See, for me, it's weird. It's almost like the movie kind of goes out of its way to ignore bigger stuff, but it's cool with referencing smaller things. Hey look, Cybertron took out Sentinel's ship on the moon. Hey look, it's taking out the Sun Harvester from Revenge of the Fallen. Look, it's in Hong Kong from Age of Extinction. Look, it's Wheelie. Look, Starscream's head, even though it blew up. Look, the TRF prison is called an NBE Supermax. We haven't heard of NBE since what? The first movie, I'm pretty sure, unless it was briefly mentioned in Revenge of the Fallen, I can't remember. Optimus kicks Megatron out of the ignition chamber in a pretty similar way to Hot Rod throwing Galvatron out of Unicron in the 86 movie. Not sure if that was meant to be a reference, but I'm gonna say it's one. Then let me get into a big thing with this movie, which is the continuity, and just, man, there's some stuff that they just really didn't care about. Just because I feel like the whole secret history of Transformers thing just gets really overblown, and I kind of call the room that Edmund Burton takes Cade and Vivian into as like the continuity destroying room. Just because, you know, you see these paintings and drawings and pictures of characters being to Earth a long time before they're supposed to be. And you know, like there's one where there's a robot standing beside what looks to be a volcano going off, which I don't remember exactly, but that's like supposed to be a volcanic eruption from, I believe, the sort of mid to late 1800s. And the robot in the picture is very clearly Last Knight Megatron. So it's like, one, he shouldn't have that body yet, and two, should be frozen in ice in the Arctic right now. And then this whole Order of the Witwickens, did Sam's family even know what this was, since it's kind of named after them in a way, or maybe they're named after it, I don't freaking know. Is Sam Witwicky dead? And then Age of Extinction was all about the creators. How many times did Lockdown say the word creators in that movie?
And your creators want you back. The creators want to sweep their chessboard clean. The creators, they don't like it.
And Optimus Prime.
This seed belongs to our creators, and this message is to my creators.
And then in this one, there is only one. Part of me wants to kind of give that a pass, but I'm like, no, they use creators in plural too many damn times for me to really give that a pass. Or there's the fact that Lockdown specifically says this.
It's taken centuries, but I've collected all the knights. but you.
But you know, in this movie, the Guardian Knights, the ones that I would assume to be the most important ones since they stole from Quintessa, the creator, if she is the one that hired Lockdown, like, they're in the ocean and the water, so Lockdown just lied? Maybe he was just trying to hype himself up, the Optimus. I don't know. He did have the Dinobots after all. Then even that's weird of like, so the only Knights were the Dinobots and then Optimus? I don't know. Of course, the thing of Megatron back to being Megatron again, basically just ignoring that Galvatron was ever a thing. Once again, check out my previous video if you haven't yet. And of course, the whole thing here where, even though this was a problem since Revenge of the Fallen, where Bumblebee's voice is still messed up and he gets his voice back here, but it sounds nothing like what it did in the 2007 movie. And then Optimus says,
Your voice. I have not heard it since Cybertron fell.
even though you heard it like 10 years ago, I believe is what the timeline is supposed to be here. Unless he's referring to the end of Dark of the Moon as when Cybertron fell, even though I doubt it. And there are other continuity issues too. It just all kind of hurts my head. Then let's get into the editing of this movie. Of course, this movie is famous for the fact that the aspect ratio changes constantly, all the time, and it is annoying. And it's not even like it's a case of it's switching from a regular screen size to like an IMAX screen. It's the fact that there's like, I want to say 3 or 4 different aspect ratios that it'll change within a scene, and it's so jarring and very, very noticeable. I just don't understand how that went through. There's an editing choice in this movie that is absolutely hilarious to me that involves some reused footage from previous movies, and it's during the submarine chase scene. It comes when the submarine transformer hits this other submarine that's chasing them, and whenever the 2 submarines make contact, they reuse the scene of Megatron rising out of the ocean from Revenge of the Fallen and hitting the submarine there. And it's hilarious to me because they didn't even change anything in the shot, because the submarine transformer is going down towards, you know, the dark depths of the ocean, whereas Megatron is rising from the dark depths going up to the surface. So that whole bit is wrong. And then the fact is, you can see Megatron plainly in the shot. If they had made the effort to at least replace Megatron with the submarine, I could give it a bit of a pass. But you can tell that's him, like you see his glowing boosters on his back and everything. I remember that bit confusing me in the theater, and I thought for some reason Revenge of the Fallen started playing for a second. It was crazy. I don't really have an issue with reusing small bits of scenes here and there, just because that's kind of frequent in these movies for just small little bits usually, but that just came off as lazy and almost makes me think that they just forgot to film something or animate a scene, so they just had to throw something in real fast. And yeah, on the whole, the editing is really messy in this one. Michael Bay's movies, especially these movies, kind of get a lot of complaints about the editing, but they don't usually bug me too much, even something like Revenge of the Fallen, which is a little messy here and there. But like this one, I don't know, just it's extremely messy between the aspect ratio, that scene with the submarine, and just how quick a lot of stuff is. Like, look at this bit from the medieval scene in the beginning. And of course, you know, the writing and story of this movie, it really seems like they just slammed 3 scripts together as hard as they could and just hoped it worked out. I don't get it, man. As almost usual with this series, it got negative reviews, and it really seems like more fans than not also did not like this one. Depending on if you don't like the movies, it's just another bad one, but depending on if you like the movies, it's like the genuinely bad one. And that's kind of where I'm at personally. I don't hate this movie. There's actually a good bit of stuff I like about it, and it turning out the way it has kind of fascinates me a little bit, but like, it's still not good. And this also reflected in the box office, because this is the lowest grossing of the Michael Bay Transformers movies. And apparently with just all the behind the scenes stuff, the production budget, and with the marketing stuff that I have read, I'm not sure if this is 100% accurate, but apparently this lost Paramount $100 million, which is kind of nuts. You know, the fact that it was an apparent box office flop and then the negative reviews basically ended the Michael Bay series. The only reason that Bumblebee even went ahead was the fact that it was too far in production and too much was spent on it to pull the plug, so they just kind of had to go through with it. And even then, after the reception to this movie, they had a lot of time to go ahead and rework elements of that movie and cut out a lot of the more obvious ties to it being a prequel at first. There's still ties in there, but for the most part, Bumblebee also works as just a standalone thing. In a way, you could kind of see this movie going the way it did as having an effect on the franchise as a whole, because this is also around the time when things really started to hit being very G1. Whether this not going the way that it planned is what really caused that, who knows? But I can definitely see it as a contributing factor. So yeah, on the whole, Transformers The Last Knight is not a good film by any stretch of the imagination. As I stated before, like with the rest of this series, I don't think it is quite as bad as it's made out to be, but for me personally, this one is easily the worst of the bunch. It just has a weak story, a script that just feels very scatterbrained, and it's weird because it's doing way too much, but at the same time, not enough, and just too many characters that are just kind of there and not really doing anything. It's unfortunate that this went the way it did, man, and especially with a cliffhanger ending, it sucks when stuff doesn't get a proper ending to it. In a way, the movie kind of does, because like Cybertron's back and the Autobots are gonna rebuild their home, but it's still like, what about the Unicron stuff? I wouldn't mind if there was maybe like a comic or something that tried to wrap up the Bayverse stuff, especially since another movie set after this seems highly unlikely. But you know, I can still watch this movie. There's a lot of stuff that I still like. I love the score. There's some cool scenes here and there. You know, there's enough for it to hold my attention and not be a movie that I would never watch again or one that I dread watching. It's just, you know, not good. But it's definitely one of those bad movies that I can watch and be okay with. But hey, tell me, what do you think about The Last Knight? Is it the worst in the series for you, or is it better than people say? And if it's not the worst in the series in your opinion, which one is? Let me know down in the comments. And as always, a big thanks to everyone for watching, and have a good one.